Good morning. I was TikToking. Morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Is everyone ready to get some knowledge shoved into their faces? Gonna take all this knowledge and shove it in your face holes? Please, Marcus wants knowledge shoved into his face holes. I love it. Okay. You know what? I just occurred to me. You guys don't even know what I look like. Do you want to see what I look like? Because it's awesome. Hold on. I'm looking a little rough today, guys. I'm not gonna lie. Here we go. This is me. This is me. Hi, everybody. That's me. Is that you feel better now that you're clearly learning from a very professional looking person? I'm sitting in my house coat. And I'm gonna turn that off because nobody wants to see that. Okay. There's only 19 people here. Apparently 5 of you decided you didn't learn anything. You don't want to learn anything else. So that's fine. Screw them. Is there anything from yesterday or last night you guys wanted to talk about before we got started? Or do we think we're all good? All good. Okay, so I spoke with the guy who's teaching you tomorrow, and he said, unfortunately, he cannot do 8 a.m. He has to do 12. So tomorrow, you are doing 12 with Brock. I apologize. There's nothing I can do about that. No problem, Claudio. No problem. I appreciate the thank you. This is why you're cooler. No, this is not what this is, because I don't have a life. And I am up at 8 a.m. I'm a little hungover, but here I am. Okay. As we noticed yesterday, some of y'all have never actually gone through your code book. So your homework tonight, it's not really homework, and again, I can't check to see if you do it, is I want you to sit down and go through your code book. Now, I'm not talking read it. God. I'm saying grab yourself a wobbly pop, sit down, and just flip through the pages. You don't have to remember where everything is, but that exists in the code book. So if you get a question, you'll be like, oh, that's in the code book, and you can go hunt for it then. Because there is a ridiculous amount of useful stuff in the code book that if you haven't just kind of flipped through it, you're not going to know it's there. Extraordinarily helpful. So I'm just going to go through a couple of the things. I got this lovely PowerPoint here. Going through some of the things that you need to know about your code book. I have no idea why I put 2022. Apparently I was drinking. We get a handbook during the exam, right? What do you mean a handbook? Where's my coffee? I lost my coffee. Oh, the big code book? Again, as of yesterday, I don't know. I would assume that they would give you one and you can't use your own. I'm going to assume that, but again, I don't know. Yeah, you don't get the little one. You only get just the regular code book. All right, so here we go. You guys are all familiar with tables 1, 2, 3, and 4. For the love of God, I hope so. However, some of the things I want to point out is throughout many of the tables, you see these lovely guys right here. We got a Jesus cross. We got a double Jesus cross. We got 2 snakes making out. When you see these, you absolutely have to check the notes, because when you go down to the bottom and you check the notes, it tells you you can use this if or whatever. They're 100% going to screw with you on that. So even though you're like, I've done this 1,000 times, make sure that if you see a Jesus cross, double Jesus cross, or two snakes making out, you go down to the bottom and double check. Double check. Over here, you see you got two asterisks. Just double check. Oh, good morning, Rodrigo. Good morning. Oh, there's just a, there you go. Now, there are two tables for bonding. Please make sure you are using the right one. Table 16 is bonding jumpers and bonding conductors. Table 41 is bonding jumpers specifically for service raceways. So please make sure you are using the right one. Now, why didn't they put those two tables beside each other? You know why? Because fuck you. The code book doesn't make any sense. So there are two tables for bonding. Make sure you use the right one. Not to be confused with the table for grounding. So 51 is for grounding conductors. Do any of you happen to know what an exothermic weld is? Exothermic weld. Nothing? Kinda. Exothermic weld is out in the field known as CAD welding. Like CAD welding. It's used for the larger sizes. You'll see here we got a size 6 gauge, 3 gauge, 1 gauge. So this is for, yes, for the with the powder and the blowing uppy stuff. So this is for, if you notice, you go up here and you see 36. So that's your high voltage stuff. So these grounding conductors are based off the high voltage. Exothermic weld is CAD welding. And again, we see a little, where is it? Down here, wire size down here. You see the little, whatchamacallit, asterisk. It's letting you know down here the wire size is in KC mil. So again, please make sure that bare copper grounding conductors, table 51. Over here is your short circuit current. You very well may get a question asking you, blah, 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 high voltage, what size of bare copper grounding conductor can you use? Well, in order to figure that out, you have to figure out your short circuit current. If you don't happen to know how to figure out your short circuit current, I have a PowerPoint for that. It's it's in the folder. It's called short circuit impedance. So learn how to do that. This, meow. Okay, as a heads up, my cats, they're all ditch kitties. They're having a complete spazzo right now, running around the house. So if you hear something weird, that's the cat. Once again, friendly reminder, we see our asterisks, we see some Jesus crosses. You go down here and it lets you know, unjacketed, jacketed, this does matter. So please make sure, again, you check your two snakes making out and all that other stuff. Did you guys know that in your code book, there is a table for cable ties? Cable ties. Zip ties. Did you know? Have you seen this? Thank you, Beverly, for proving my point. Tonight, I want you all to sit down and just flip through your code book, because you very well may get a question that you're like, how the hell am I supposed to know about friggin' cable ties? Well, that's because there's a table. So a type 2 and 2.1 cable tie is approved for type of cable tie, but not specifically approved to provide primary support for flexible conduit, flexible tubing. So if you get a question that says, hey, what kind of cable tie do you use for flexible tubing? Guess what? It's type 2 and 21. And then we have 2S and 21S, specifically approved to provide primary support for flexible conduit. So again, just sit down tonight, flip through. You're going to find an awful lot of good stuff in there. We're all familiar with 6A for conduit fill. I just want to remind everybody that when you're looking at the top, please, 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 please pay attention to whether or not it says jacketed or unjacketed and what the voltage is. Because table 6A is unjacketed 600, 6B is jacketed 600, 6C is unjacketed 1000 volts, and 6D is jacketed 1000 volts. You don't want to get the wrong answer just because you weren't paying attention. Also, if a question does not mention stranded or solid, what do you assume? If a question about conduit fill does not mention stranded or solid, yeah, correct. You always assume stranded. If it says solid, you cannot use these guys. They're specific at the bottom. And solid only comes in size 10, 12, and 14. So please make sure if you get a question asking about conduit fill, I can guarantee you they're going to screw with you and mention one of them is solid. You cannot use the upper ones. You have to specifically use the bottom one. You will absolutely get a question or two based on, I don't even know, configure, like direct burial cable stuff. So when you go to Appendix B, again, there's a whole bunch of crap in Appendix B and Appendix D. This guy here, figure B12-2, and there are a couple of them. We have single phase, and it gives you the configurations, or 3-phase, and it gives you different configurations, and it lets you know the colors. So with this 3-phase, 2 conductors per phase, so they're running in parallel. This is how they're going to be buried. So be phase A, B, and C with the neutral separated. That's what the S is, and then A, B, C with the neutral right there. And you may get a question based off of that. And then down here, it says the configurations above may not result in equal ampacity or division of current, blah, blah, blah. And it sends you to a specific rule if you have to go to it. So this one here is, how are they designed? How are they laid out? This one, remember when we had that, what is the burial depth of RWU90 according to diagram 10 of detail 3? This is what we're looking at. So this one's diagram D8, so it's found in Appendix D, and the question will say detail 3. So down here, detail 3, and this is letting you know now the distances. So the last one we looked at was the configurations of how they're laid out. This one is the distances. So 2 cables per phase, again, means it's laid in parallel. This is showing you over here that the burial depth has to be 950 millimeters. And then in between each phase, it has to be 190 millimeters. And in between the 2 chunks of phases, I guess, has to be 610 millimeters. So when you get the question that says diagram D8 detail 3, you go to Appendix D, your diagram, and then you find whichever detail it tells you to find, because these are the ones that let you know the exact distances in between things, and you will 100% get one of these questions. I don't have it off the top of my head, but there are a crap ton of these. Like there's a bunch of different configurations with the depths and stuff like that. So make sure, again, you get the right one. Boom. What's this one here? Oh, hey, there we go. This is the one we saw yesterday with the depth change if encased in concrete. What do you mean with like the actual conductors themselves? Because we don't ever put direct burial cables, we don't ever put them in concrete. We will put conduit in concrete, but direct buried, like Tech 90, you don't ever put Tech 90 or anything like that in concrete. No, so this one, that's actually a good question, Ian. This one is based off of direct buried. So when it says direct buried, oh, I forgot to do that one. When it says direct buried, that's the implication that it's not in conduit, PVC, or anything like that. Direct buried means literal Tech 90 or whatever gets shoved directly into the ground. I missed this one here. So this one here, again, you're going to get a minimum of 1, maybe 2, maybe 3 questions based off of direct buried cables. So I keep saying minimum 1, minimum 2 questions, and you say to yourself, But why should I care about one or two questions? Well, the reason you should care about one or two questions is there's going to be at least 10 to 15 questions on the C of Q that you're just not going to be able to answer. I can guarantee that. There's going to be a minimum of 10 to 15 questions that you're going to look at them and you're going to be like, I legitimately don't know what they're asking. I don't know how to figure it out. I don't even know if these words are English. And this is the average person. I'm sure there's one or two of you that are like super duper smart. And you're going to be like, fuck you, Julie. I know 100. Great. Good for you. Talk about the average person. So right off the bat, if there's 10 to 15 questions you know you're not going to be able to answer, you don't have a whole lot of wiggle room for, oh, but it's only a question. Why should I study if there's only going to be one question? Why should I study if they're only going to ask me one question based on direct buried cables? Because it's really going to suck. And trust me, it really sucks when you fail with a 65 to a 70. Like a 65 to a 69, I guess I should say. That really sucks. If you fail with less than a 65, it honestly, it doesn't feel as bad because you know, okay, I fucked up, but I can study. You fail with a 65 to a 69, you were smart. You were so close. And if you had just answered, say, one more question right, you would have passed. So yes, even though you're like, why do I care about that one question? That one question could literally be the make or break between you passing. The amount of people I know who failed 1, 2, 3 times with a 65 to a 69 is insane. So you are definitely, absolutely 100% going to get a minimum of 1, more likely 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4 questions based on direct buried cables. So table 53, very important. The question's always going to mention non-vehicular area or vehicular area, or they're going to say something like it's a field. Now, if it's a field, clearly it's a non-vehicular area, or it's going to say a driveway. If it's a driveway, clearly it's a vehicular area. You're supposed to have some common sense and make that judgment call on your own. Now, as I mentioned yesterday, this right here. You need to know if the cable has a metal sheath or armor, if it doesn't have a metal sheath or armor, or if it can even be direct buried. So based off of this, you absolutely need to remember table 19 and table D1, because this is the perfect example of side quests. You're going to get a bunch of questions that are going to say, TW, direct buried, 750 volts, vehicular area, whatever. You first have to check whether or not it can even be direct buried, 19, because if it can't be, it's going to go in the raceway. If it can be direct buried, then you have to find out from D1 whether it has a metal sheath or armor. Don't assume to know. Unless it's Tech 90, which all of us know has a metal sheath, has armor, and all of us know it can be direct buried. Unless it's Tech 90, don't assume. Don't think you know. So if it's R90, like just R90 XLPE or R75 or TW75, don't assume that, oh, yeah, this is totally can be direct buried, because maybe no. Always check 19 and D1. All right, sorry, I'm gonna go back to this guy here. Meow. This is the one I mentioned yesterday. I don't know what this is. I have no idea what this is. I got this in my exam. And I'm like, it was a diagram. I didn't have a clue. But because I had sat down and gone through my code book and just flipped through all the pages, again, you don't have to memorize everything. Just acknowledge, oh, there's a table for cable ties. I remembered this. I flipped to it, and the answer was super easy. I think it was like this one was, whoops. I think this was A. Oh, no, sorry, wrong. Like A, B, C, and D. And the question asked, what's the point of de-energization for specifically something? And it was like, oh, it was this one. And because that was based off of, whoops. Down here, an asterisk indicates the ultimate point beyond which the downstream ungrounded circuit conductors. So Either way, this is a thing that exists. If you get this question, now you know. It's in the diagrams. This lovely guy for fire pumps. Fire pumps and emergency generators. If you get any questions based off of emergency generators, you can go to section 46, of course. But if you go to Appendix B, you can actually sometimes skip having to find the actual codes because they give you these lovely descriptions which put the code right in there for you. So the transfer switch for equipment, 46-02. Fire pump transfer switch, here are the specific codes. Transfer switch for life safety system, here's the specific code as well. Again, another perfect example of, please make sure you check. These are the enclosures. You've got your asterisk, your Jesus cross, your double Jesus cross, and two snakes making out. So again, please pay attention. Here's another one. Fire pump connected upstream, blah, blah, blah. But it gives you all these lovely notes and legends and lets you know specifically what code you need. If you get any questions based off of fuses, you go to table B14. We got class CB fuse. It's also known as HRCI, HRC Form 1. So if you get a question about fuses, you don't even need to know what the frick they're asking. Just go to this one here, fuse classes. There you go. Some pictures. You got pictures. Well, there's lovely guys here telling you where you're going to put these guys. Your coefficient of linear expansion. You're going to get, again, more than likely at least one question about this. Remember that your table is in Appendix B, but what I want to point out is there's an example. If you get a coefficient linear expansion question wrong, you're an absolute potato. There's literally an example, and they do it all for you. So just take the question, pop your numbers in, and you're good to go. You cannot possibly screw this up. They give you an example. Same for voltage drop, my friends. You are 100% going to get a voltage drop question. But Julia, why do I need to study for voltage drop? Again, because it's really going to suck when you get a 69. Now, 69 in life, thumbs up. 69 on your C of Q, not good. It's the only time in life a 69 is not good, my friends. It's when you do your C of Q. Max, catch my joke? Thank you, Max. So early. I lost my coffee. So for voltage drop, hopefully you all remember how to do it. If you don't, that's okay, because guess what? They give you a freaking example. They give you 2 examples. So if you don't know how to do something with the voltage drop, just put your numbers in there. You cannot possibly screw up a voltage drop question. They give you 2 examples. Sorry, I'm getting really frustrated. I apologize. Now, are you all familiar with table D16? D16. Are we familiar with this table? Have we run into it before? Because if you know it, I don't have to blather on about it. A little. Well, that doesn't help me, Max. Madison, are we familiar with D16? Okay, well, then you guys are about to be really pissed. D16 used to be table 28. It is not table 28. Apparently, they decided to bury it down in Appendix D. D16 does all your motor math for you. So over here, you see your FLA, full load current rating of the motor, minimum allowable ampacity of insulated conductor based on continuous duty. And we have non-time delay fuse, time delay fuse, and circuit breaker. So let's say you have a FLA of 2 amps and you have the circuit breaker for a scroll cage motor. You know it's 2.5%, 250%. And then you go to table 13 and you go down to find your circuit breaker. This already does it for you. So you don't have to do any motor math or motor calculations. D16 already does all of your calculations for you. For not only the ampacity of the insulated conductor based on continuous duty, but your time to all of your overcurrent. So you don't have to do any math. This is an extraordinarily handy table when you're in a hurry. So the question gives you blah, 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 600 volt, yum, 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 yum. All you have to do is go to D16, find the flaw. Like you have to go to table 44 or 45, because if it gives you a 50 horsepower, you go to 44 or 45, it tells you that the flaw for 50 horsepower is 12 amps. You go, great, go to D16, you find your 12 amps, and you know for a 12 amp, 50 horsepower, you need a 30 amp breaker for a single phase. If it's 3-phase, you need a 20 amp breaker. If it's DC wound or wound rotor, you need a 15 amp breaker. It already does the math for you and goes to table 13 and figures out what size of breaker, time delay or non-time delay, okay? And if you actually go to D16, you'll find, I think it's like 8 or 9 pages. It's a big one. So you can save yourself an awful lot of time in accidentally screwing the math up. So if you notice, for continuous duty, we all know continuous duty is 125%. Well, that's like right here. If you have a full load current rating of 1 amp and it's continuous duty, you multiply that by 125%, you end up with the allowable ampacity of 1.25%. So this already does that for you as well. It takes your flaw, continuous duties it right here. So a flaw of 12 amps, continuous duty, is actually 15 amps, and then you go to your table 2. So you don't have to do any math. D16, Appendix D. There you go. Here is our neutral supported conductor. Again, when you are in Section C of the C of Q, as we realized yesterday, when you are in Section C, always ask yourself, is there a freaking table for this? Because the majority of the questions in Section C have a freaking table. You might not even know there's a table because it's buried in Appendix D or it's buried in Appendix B. But 99% of the questions in C are going to have a table associated with it. Voltage drop, linear expansion, all vertical supports, neutral support, conduit fill, box fill, grounding electrodes. Like there's a crap ton of tables in your book that are not in the table section. So again, neutral supported cable, big shock. We have table 36A. I believe there's also a 36B. Again, though, with these, please pay attention. If you're reading the question and you notice it says something weird that you're not, like, what the hell? Why are they mentioning wind? There's a reason for that. Always check your notes. The ampacity ratings are based on 30-degree ambient temperature and a wind velocity. And it's telling you if the ambient temperature is wonky, you have to do a quick multiplier. It's telling you that the wind velocity is wonky and the sun radiated heat energy is wonky to do a multiplier. So again, always check your notes. Ian, sorry, this table is mostly residential. Which table? This one right here? Neutral supported cable? Yeah. So this could be a question in Section B because it's neutral supported, but more often than not, this is going to be a question in Section C because Section C is how do we install this shit? Every question you're going to get in Section C, which is 30 questions, it's the biggest section in the C of Q. Every single one of these 30 questions is, how do we install this shit? And that's what the majority of the tables and diagrams in the code book are about. How do we install this shit? Section C is almost exclusively code. So again, I'm going to say this so many times. Please sit down tonight and just flip through your code book and notice all of the random ass freaking tables that are in there. Like this. Patient care areas, Section 24. I freaking hate Section 24. But guess what? We've got a lovely table. This one, table 5 from CSA, blah, blah, blah. It's in one of the appendixes. I can't remember. But it's literally a table. Branch circuits per bed, 0.5. But notice the little asterisks. 0.5 means one circuit shared by 2 beds. Number of duplex receptacles per patient care, 8. Again, C note 2. I'm just saying, if you get a question about patient care areas and receptacles, don't have to read the code. Look for the table. It already does it for you. Friendly reminder again, we have 2 tables based on bending radii. No, they're not beside each other. Again, fuck you. I don't know why. But table 7 is conduit or tubing, and table 15 is high voltage cable. You will absolutely get a question based off of each of these tables, 100%. Like I'm just telling you right now, 100% you're going to get a question based off of cable and tubing. The high voltage cable, please pay attention to portable power cables 5 kV and less or over 5 kV, because that's where they're going to screw with you. Also, again, please read the note. You are 100% going to get a question based off of this table. External tapered threads for rigid metal conduit. You are absolutely going to get that, except where they're going to screw with you is they're not going to give you the trade size. They're going to say 3-inch rigid metal conduit. You're going to go, oh, Julia was awesome. She told me there was a table for this. You're going to find the table and you're going to go, uh-oh, what's the trade size for 3-inch? What do we do? What's the trade size for 3-inch rigid conduit? You guys even listening? Am I even here? 78, but how did you know that? Don't say you just remembered. Page 97, thank you. At the very, very, very beginning, before section 0, there's a table that's going to let you know how to go from trade size over to the actual inches, okay? Also pay attention to the question. It may ask you minimum or maximum, so make sure you're going in the right one, but you will 100% get a question based off of this table. Sometimes, when my kids aren't home, and I'm contemplating my life and my life choices, I often say to myself, you know what? How many wires are actually in like a number 2 gauge cable? Like an extra flexible number 2 gauge. How many wires are actually in it? Well, you know what? Look at, here's a 2 gauge, extra flexible. Guess how many conductors? Those little strands there are? There's 37. Did you guys know that? Whoops, I think I even, yeah, there's 37 strands. Because of course there's a table for that. There's a table to let you know how many strands. Yeah, you know, you haven't seen it? Because then it's in Appendix D. So what am I going to say again? I'm going to say, please do me a favor. Sit down tonight and go through your freaking code book. Like, this is, who knew there was a table for this? They literally have a table telling you the diameter, occupied area, and how many strands. So in a 14 gauge, a standard 14, which is what we use, there are 7 strands in it. In an extra flexible, there's 37 strands. What's occupied area? So occupied area, diameter is referring to the amount, because I can't draw strands. The amount diameter is this, like the width of it. The occupied area, if you notice, is in mm squared. So it's giving you this. So it's for conduit fill. Yeah. Because you'll notice the occupied area for standard is not the same, or it is the same, I guess, for this one, but it does change. Sometimes it does change. But again, you have to pay attention to, you got a double Jesus cross here. So pay attention to the bottom. That voltage drop we talked about, there's a table for it. It's 68. It's got a really long here, blah, blah, blah. But it boils down to this is a voltage drop table. So the longest you can run a 15 amp, try again. The furthest you can run a 14 gauge on a 15 amp circuit before voltage drop starts happening is 38 meters. The longest you can run a number 10 going to a 28 amp circuit before a voltage drop starts to happen is 78 meters. It already does the math for you. And because 14, 12, and 10 are the three most common sizes used in a house, that's why they already have the table. So after 38 meters, that's when voltage drop starts to happen. So there's already a table. So you don't have to do all the gosh darn math. It already did it for you. Put it in this table here. Nice and easy to remember. That's section 18, hazardous locations. Guess what? Table 18. So section 18, table 18, equivalent zone and division group classifications. You are 100% going to get a question based off of tightening torque. You absolutely are going to get a tightening torque question. Guess what? There's a table for that, but it's in Appendix D. Appendix D. What is the tightening torque in Newton per meters of, because I think I gave you guys one of those questions yesterday, actually. So the wire size, it'll say number 14 for a wire binding screw. So there's between 10 gauge and 14 gauge wire binding screw. You have to do a tightening torque of 1.4 Newton meters. But it's going to do something a little more complicated. It'll say 2 watt with split bolt connectors. All right, well, this one right here is split bolt connectors. Here's the 2 watt. So my tightening torque is 43.5. You will absolutely get this question. I have to pee. We need 5 minutes. No, no. Secondary side, 750 or less. Meow, right here. That's having 750 for primary, but secondary lower. So there you go. Okay. So again, the second you see transformer question with impedance, just immediately go to this table. Save yourself the hassle. Again, friendly reminder, when you're in section C of your C of Q, the first thing you always ask yourself when you have a question is there a freaking table for this? Because yeah, probably. Anytime you get a question based off of anything vertical, there's a table for it. Anything vertical, there's always a table for it. Welders, you're going to get probably a question on welders because it's fairly new, the welder section, hence the little triangles here. It's nice and easy to remember though, because section 42 is table 42. So welders is section 42 and it's table 42. So it's nice and easy to remember. Hopefully you guys, did you learn how to do welders in code? Yes, perfect. Okay. In case you need a refresher though, I do have a very handy dandy PowerPoint. Hold your hand and walk you through it. In section A, the dumbass safety section, if you are going to get a code question, I can almost guarantee it's going to be based off of this table. Minimum working space around electrical equipment having exposed parts. So when you're in section A of the C of Q, this is probably the table you're going to have, and things in section 2, because section 2 is basically section 2 in the code book is everything to do with section A. Again, it's only 11 questions, but if you do have a code question, more than likely the answer is either going to be in section 2 or this table specifically. Now, for motors, are we familiar with this page right here? Yes, beautiful, love it. So I don't need to go over it. I will suggest that once you hit the motor section, to just keep this handy, because even if the question, you're like, what the hell is a secondary resistor? You say to yourself, well, I'm in the motor section. So clearly, if I'm in the motor section of the C of Q and it's asking about secondary resistors, it obviously has to do something with motors. You go to here, you go down to secondary resistors and it's going to send you to that. Same with, you guys are familiar with this. It's on the opposite page. You guys are good with this. We recognize this. Yes, no, maybe so. Yes, yes, yes. Beautiful. I'm glad that you got shown that. Also, yeah, same thing. So when you hit the motor section, D16, which is the one that already does the math for you, and then this page, you should be set for the code the code questions. So anyway, those are obviously not all of the tables in the book, but my friends, those are just a couple to let you know. Please, again, sit down, go through your book tonight. There's going to be a lot of stuff in there. You're going to be like, fuck, I wish I'd known about this sooner. Any questions before we move on? Any questions? Any questions? Ask me a question. I love questions. They're my favorite. All sorts of questions. I pay $0. I pay $0. Well, I guess, well, technically, no. ChatGPT version 4 is the only one that does pictures. But I use ChatGPT 4 for like a lot of complicated math stuff. So I already needed it anyway. But I don't pay any money for these. Look at, isn't he cute? He's so freaking cute. I love him. Like, if I could get a tattoo of him, I would. Look at his little button-up sweater and his little bow or his little tie there. The math doesn't make any sense, so just ignore that. Okay. So, again, we're not recording. Please don't report me. But I'm about to explain some things that hopefully may help. If you guys already know this, that's great. If you don't, buckle up. When it comes to electricity, my friends, there are only 3 rules that matter. That's it. Just 3. But what about no? There's only 3. But what about no? There's only 3. The first rule: electricity is lazy. First, look at this guy here. Electricity is lazy. Electricity hates working so much, it will literally try to kill you for making it work. It always takes the path of least resistance. It always wants to go home to ground. But most importantly, electricity is so lazy and it hates working so much that it literally throws a temper tantrum if you try to make it work. Okay, what does this have to do with the C of Q? Because you are going to get an awful lot of general trade knowledge questions. General trade knowledge questions are things that you should have learned while out in the field, or you learned in theory class, and you have to make all the puzzle pieces fit together. So these 3 rules that I'm going to go through, what's going to help you out. So with the temper tantrum, inductance and capacitance, which you guys would have learned in like level 2, inductance and capacitance are literally the fighting of change. So it's literally electricity being really angry or trying to make it work and trying really hard to get out of working. And this is what I was talking about, how resistance and impedance are not the same thing. It tries all sorts of tricks. Resistance, inductance, and capacitance together make impedance. So essentially, when you're looking at a sine wave, the only time electricity is happy is when it's not working. Right here at 0 volts and right here at peak. It's the only time electricity is happy because it's not doing anything. But when you are here and you say, hey, electricity, I need you to get your ass to work right here, it throws a massive temper tantrum and it fights. So inductance is, hey, current, I need you to be from here to here, and electricity going, the fuck I will. And this is its fighting. This is its throwing a temper tantrum. Now, sometimes the temper tantrum isn't too bad. It's like that. Sometimes the temper tantrum is real bad and it's like that. If you'll notice, this here, really big temper tantrum. This one not as bad. Electricity is lazy. Second rule, series is an ass. Anybody want to take a big guess as to what ass may stand for? Madison likes to interact with me. Madison, you want to take a wild guess as to what ass may stand for? Nope. Oh, Madison, you were so close. Amps stay the same. Series does not like sharing. Series circuits do not like sharing their amps. Series is an ass. Amps stay the same. Now, all things in series follow the exact rules of the basic series circuit. DC series motors, it's an ass. The amps stay the same. Our Y configuration is considered series, so it follows the same rules as a series circuit. Y configuration is an ass. Amps stay the same. An open circuit or an open ground fault, it's an ass. Amps stay the same. Batteries connected in series, it's an ass. Amps stay the same. Now, I don't put this in the PowerPoint because I don't want to get into trouble. But gentlemen or ladies, how do we like our asses? How do we like our asses, my friends? Big, fat, right. We like our asses thick, fat, juicy. So guess what? Everything that is considered series, the windings are going to be thick, fat, and juicy. So when you're looking at a Y configuration, guess what kind of windings it has? Thick, fat, juicy windings. It's an ass. Our amps stay the same, and we like our asses thick, fat, and juicy. So our series Y configuration has thick, fat, juicy windings. Our DC series motor, when you draw that out with its field winding or whatever, this series, thick, fat, juicy windings. Well, thank you, Nathan. Now I'm going to take it one step even more politically not correct. Gentlemen, when you see a thick, fat ass in front of you, what kind of torque are you going to have? You see a thick, fat, juicy ass winding in front of you. What kind of torque are you going to have? Come on, high torque, my friends. That's right. Because anytime you see that thick, fat, juicy winding, yeah, you get high torque. So again, series does not like sharing. Series is an ass. It's an asshole. Amps stay the same. How do we like our asses? Thick, fat, and juicy. Everything considered series is going to have thick, fat, juicy wires, thick, fat, juicy windings. And what do we do when we see a thick, fat, juicy winding? We got some high torque. Not to be confused with our third rule, parallel. Parallel's not an ass. Parallel's a nice circuit. Parallel shares its amps. Parallel's like Oprah. You get some amps. You get some amps. You get some amps. So all things in parallel follow the same parallel rules. The DC shunt motor is considered parallel, so it shares its amps. The delta configuration, considered parallel, shares its amps. Short circuit, parallel, shares its amps. Batteries wired in parallel, shares its amps. The amps add. Parallel transformers have to be the same voltage. So it's going to share the amps. The service inside your house is parallel, shares the amps. That's it. Those are the only three rules that matter. Everything you know theory, general trade knowledge, is based off of those three rules. Electricity is lazy, series is an ass, parallel's nice. So if you're looking at a general trade knowledge question and it's asking about parallel transformers, if it's parallel, you know that those transformers have to have the same voltage, because in a parallel circuit, the voltage stays the same. So if they're parallel transformers, they have to be the same voltage. If you have parallel conductors have to follow the same rules as the parallel circuit. The voltage has to be the same. The amps can change, but the voltage has to be the same. In a series circuit, the amps have to be the same, but the voltage can change. So literally any general trade knowledge question you get, if you cannot figure it out, think it's going to be one of these three rules. Okay, that's that. That's it. Are we good for this one? Any questions? Oh, cool. Okay. For what it's worth, when I teach this, everybody gets a kick out of it. So, but again, I can't put some of it into a PowerPoint because I'd probably get fired. So, you know, especially about the fat, thick, juicy stuff. Oh, I already did that one. I want to, sorry, I got to look for my other file here. I uploaded the wrong one. Oh. No, hit this one again. Keepers creepers. Oops. Get rid of that one. To be uploaded. Upload. Upload. Oh, I just realized we hit an hour. Do you guys want to take like a 5-minute break? Okie dokie. 5 minutes. 5 minutes.